We are recording.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we are rolling.
We're
This
rolling.
is the new experience, but I guess we'll still do the opening the same, right?
Yeah, I think
We have to.
I think.
Well, I'm J.W. Myers.
I'm Karl Brubaker.
And welcome to the Movie Brewdio podcast with J.W. and Karl. But it's not just J.W. and Karl.
No, J.W. and Karl and guests.
And guests. But we'll save that for a second from now. We are two middle-aged guys living in Western Maryland who love our small-town lives, yet cling to our past days of social and cultural relevance.
So in this podcast, we talk about the things, the tools, and the resources that enable us to walk through life with a smile on our faces and a little bit of kindness in our hearts.
And we're making a movie.
And we are making a movie, absolutely.
Maybe more than one movie.
Yes.
Well, likely.
Likely.
We're going to be making all kinds of creative output.
Yes.
But even more important than our creative output today, Karl, is as we've already blown here, it's not the Movie Brewdio podcast with JW and Karl today.
Right.
It is JW, Karl, and very, very precious, awesome special guest, Vicki Silverfeather.
Yay!
Hello.
Now, Vicki is one of my longest friends. I don't like to use oldest friends because that's oldest here. Hello there, you whippersnappers.
That's coming later.
But Vicki and I go way back to college days at FSU, or as we talked about last night, it started as at FSC.
That's right.
Remember when it used to be called FSD, Frostburg State College?
I noticed because when they got university status, my rent tripled.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Fantastic.
That was off-campus housing.
Yes.
And suddenly they decide, it's a university.
It's a university now, kiddo. Cough it up.
How funny. Because I imagine, or what's the enrollment-wise, I imagine it went up, but not, it didn't triple.
No, but my rent sure did.
Yeah. How funny. So cool. Well, thanks for joining us. Vicki is a regular at our improv class, and her daughter Emma is also a regular improv class since the start of it. And we have such wonderful fun on Tuesday nights at improv. And I said, "Hey, you want to come out and join us?"
Yeah.
She's like, "Heck yeah."
Yeah.
So we'll weigh in on our normal thing.
Sure,
so what's how was the week? Everything good?
Yeah,
what's going on?
I think so. You always ask me, and I always have trouble with recall. I have to think about the last week.
Well, it's the drugs. It's the
drugs,
Karl.
It probably is. I need more mushroom juice.
I got some people to call about that. Yes, we got to have some mushroom juice.
Mushroom juice to get the. Now I wonder if, because you remember we talked about the mushroom juice. I had a really weird headache. Yeah. But I brewed really, really strong coffee yesterday to get me going, and I had the same headache. So I don't think it was the mushroom juice.
Oh, good.
So clear on the mushroom juice.
Vicki's going, what are they talking about? There's a product on the market by Force-O-Matic. It's essentially ground up mushrooms.
Okay.
But it takes kind of a coffee form.
Okay.
Some of it is mixed. Some of the flavors of it are mixed with an instant coffee, so it drinks as coffee. The one I'm drinking right now, the one he's referring to, is the. I'm losing the name. I'm not. You know what? They can pay me if they want me to advertise their product.
That's right.
But I like it.
Yeah, but I'm digging the lemongrass smell.
Yeah.
Coming from the diffuser.
Yeah, we have a little diffuser going down here, and
it's nice. Usually, it smells kind of like old hot dogs. And,
it's a very
special scent.
This is me and my son's hangout, and so it's very boy down here.
And this week, it's like there's a dame coming.
There's got a dame coming. Put on the diffuser. No, well, I didn't. My wife did. Yeah. She's of course.
You can stink. Here.
That's right.
Light this up.
Old hot dogs in a gym. In an abandoned gym. Yeah.
So,
the week's been good. What about you?
I had a really good week. Yeah. It's been a really busy week. It seems like the snowball is beginning to roll downhill.
Good.
With some production stuff and some other things that are going on in other places, and so it's all good. How about you, Vicki? How was your week?
Really busy, really good. I had a client, a one-time gig, but hopefully it's a fill-in thing once in a while, doing the healthcare occasionally.
Yeah.
But
and so you're a bit of a freelancer as well.
Absolutely.
You kind of, you go job to job.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And, trying to get back into the arts thing. I'm going to help Cumberland Theater with costumes next week. And
Awesome.
love to be back in improv.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Man.
God.
Talk about that, yeah.
I was not. I mean, last night, and I know we touch on this every week, and I keep, I'm sure one week I'm going to come and I'm going to say, oh, it's terrible.
It was
last
bad,
night.
man. It was rough.
It was awful.
Rough sledding.
But you have those, but we're still in this building phase right now. We're just like every week gets better.
Yeah.
And I felt like the kids are listening to me. And it can be like herding cats at sometimes with the kids, but I feel like the ones I'm usually hurting are getting the lessons and are really reeling it in and getting it.
Yes, hurting, H-E-R-D.
Yeah, I'm
Hurting.
hurting the kids.
Hurting
them.
He's hurting our kids. That's why Vicki never leaves. She stays for the whole class. I'm afraid he's going to hurt my kids. I knew him in college.
He's a ticking time bomb.
Yeah. But then the adults, we had 9 last night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And BJ and Tim showed up, who had relatively little or no improv experience, and they did great.
Yeah, they jumped right in. Yeah.
Mark Ashby was on fire last
Mark
night.
was
kinda.
great.
Yeah.
It's so funny to see like week after week you start to kind of pick up people's rhythms and figure out. And like Amanda has such a her delivery is so
dry.
It's just it's so beautiful. Like the way that she can she has a way of just sort of dropping a line in where she's just like, well, I don't know, and the way
That's
she
not
can.
what I would have said.
I think she surprises herself.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
She doubts herself, but then she gets out there and does well, and she looks like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
They like that.
No, it
was good.
It was great last night. It was so much fun. It's so much funny stuff.
We just there hasn't been a dud in a couple of weeks.
No,
like
not really.
it's like everything that everybody's going up there to do is just killing. Just killing. And Matt was on last night.
Yo, Matt's great.
It's like he's from another planet, man.
Matt is new, to the whole acting thing.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, I had a cabaret deal going on at the New Embassy Theater. And we had a night, and I asked him to play a part of Laurel and Hardy to do vintage because I wanted vintage comedy. And I thought, who could be, Ollie? He's Ollie. And who could be Stan? And I found Brian Murtha. Do you know Brian?
Oh, I know the name. Yeah, I
he's,
see him on Facebook.
He's, in a lot of local theater. He's also Doc Vreese's grandson.
Really?
Yeah.
How wild.
Which I thought was pretty wild to find that out.
Really
but
cool.
They did a great job, and I wish I had it on tape.
Yeah.
I, have some vague pictures of them. I don't even have a good picture. But they, I said, let's do this again sometime. And I think they were both kind of, interested in it. Matt wrote the skit. And it was good. Very good. And different for the area. Vintage comedy is a fun little thing.
Yeah.
Well, he pulled out it wasn't Howard Cosell, it was like Coward
It was,
Hosell
yeah.
whatever he did with that. Which is a great way to do an impersonation where you change the name slightly so that any variance in the character is forgivable.
Is covered, yeah.
And oh my God,
no, his stuff in when we played freeze tag, his yoga poses.
Oh yeah.
The frustrated middle manager. And aggressive kangaroo.
Yes.
I mean, and I loved that it was that, because they were great. I'm like, aggressive kangaroo is very funny and frustrated middle manager, but just the idea that that you would be doing yoga to calm down and you're adopting these super aggressive, frustrated poses. I mean, it's such great.
Well, I asked him if he had. Because sometimes we do that, and I'm guilty of that too. I get a funny idea that's percolating all week.
Right.
I'm going to get this in there. And I was like, did you pre-plan these very clever names? No. He said they just dropped in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Fantastic.
when you see that second, when his eyes just kind of something turns on, it's like, oh, he's got it.
Yeah.
And
it's happening quicker too.
Yeah.
The look away, it's he's always going to need to operate at his own rhythm, but it's catching up to the pace of the group as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think some of that is when you just kind of let yourself go. You don't think about it too much, and so it's just like, okay, I'm in this pose now, and then the first thing that
Yeah.
the first thing that comes to mind, you just go with it, and then you sort of try. I think that's the really amazing thing is working with everyone and seeing how willing everyone is to go. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, we're in an airplane now, and everyone goes, yeah, we're in an airplane, and there's not like.
It's real yes and. Everybody's really in agreement to,
everybody wants to
do this.
Yeah, everyone plays along and really goes with it.
Yeah. And you find, back to what you said about Matt, too, that, just as far as how our brains work, like, if you really let go and allow the thoughts to move in, especially when you're doing something physical, like moving your body like that, something different is going to come in. And so it makes all the sense in the world that angry kangaroo, aggressive kangaroo came in.
Yeah, that's so fantastic.
Oh my God! Yeah, so I mean that's kind of where we're starting, but it was like everything just was firing on all cylinders. I feel like right now I want things to go. I want to go another half an hour. I want to find a little more time and space for the adults, because it just seems like we're starting, it's over.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's part of this process too, is kind of finding this. I think an hour and a half is plenty for the kids. I think that is kind of about the extent of extension of the attention span you're going to get from them. But for adults, I think I used to do 3 hours a week with the adults.
I think you got 2 hours. And I think I mean, like the dating game last night was so funny.
Oh yeah.
Like, so they went down the line, and it was Amanda and Vicki and Christina.
Yeah.
And so Vicki was Bachelorette number 3, and when they're like Bachelorette number 3, and the first thing you said was hi.
Yeah.
And it just killed me.
Yeah.
Like I just instantly.
I've been waiting for this moment.
it was so funny.
You figure it out.
Oh my God. It was just brilliant.
Again, Mark was on fire.
Yeah,
last
he was
night.
really,
His
really great.
hosting in that was very masterful, but then taking, the lead that we've gotten with this character, saying this is her 53rd appearance on the show, and she hasn't been chosen yet.
Yeah.
I totally don't get that. She's so willing.
Right. Like, exactly. Yeah, that was great. It was a lot of fun.
We're already sort of segged into what made you laugh this week? What did you find funny this week, other than class? I think we all found class funny.
Yeah.
Let's start with let's start with Vicki. What made you laugh this week? What did you find funny this week?
Gosh, I don't think there's anything funny. That's why I come to improv. I need a balance. I need some. I gotta get my fix. Yeah, my daughter's funny. She's dry and she's got her own planet going on. And
she has really thrived in this. Like, do you see the difference in her from day one to where we are now?
Yeah.
And she seems, to me, just looking at the outside, from the outside, seems like she's so much more comfortable in her own skin.
Yes. Yeah, she can get up and sing a solo.
Yeah.
But to just, the improv was different, a little challenging for her. But, she gets it a little bit more.
She doesn't, at first, and she's always performed. She never had a problem with it. But she looked terrified. as all of us are, at the beginning of improv.
Yeah.
Now she's very willing to go first or anywhere in between or any partner. She's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been fun to watch. I love watching that.
Yeah. I think for me, it's funny because I think the one thing that's made me laugh more than anything is this week has been Ethan. He is just really developing such a personality. And I realized last night we were leaving, driving home from improv, and I realized how much he has my sense of humor. And it's this incredibly selfish and gratifying thing, I guess, that he has my sense of humor. Because he'll say things that even, I mean, he's 8.5, but he'll say things exactly the way that I would say them. He'll say a joke that is exactly on my sensibilities, and it's really pretty incredible. And then I know that I can say something that like we were driving home, just being silly, making up silly songs, and he was laughing. He laughed until he got the hiccups, which he always does. But And he eventually said, "Okay, you got to stop, or I'm going to pee."
Yep.
So okay.
Well, don't we
stop.
all say that?
Yeah,
from
exactly.
time to time?
No, so yeah, it's just been. It's so funny to see as your kids get older how they really develop that sense of humor, and and it's also funny, like, for whatever reason they're not. I struggle to find people who really genuinely make me laugh. Like I appreciate people, and and people, like we joke around and there's stuff that that makes me laugh, but like to genuinely really lose it and laugh, like unselfconsciously, just and Tracy hit me with one the other night. Just we were talking, and I was actually talking to Ethan about something, and I didn't even think she was listening. And when I finished the talk with Ethan, then she threw in a comment that just destroyed me. I mean, just because I wasn't expecting it. It was so funny.
I've had a lot of that lately. Like I was talking to Tess about it this morning. I like my kids more than I mean, I love my kids. Of course, you love your kids. Yeah. But I also like my kids. I like spending time with them.
Yeah. You look and go like, I would hang out with you.
I would.
Right.
If I didn't have to hang out with you and drive you places all the time, I would anyway.
If it wasn't creepy and weird, I'd hang out with you. Right. Yeah.
Hey, my dad's gonna come out drinking with us tonight. Is that okay?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it. I feel that way. I feel that way with Ethan a lot, and I felt that way like all of our kids to some degree. But like our oldest daughter was that way. But she's from, she's my daughter as far as I'm concerned. But she's from my wife's previous marriage, so she's not dramatically younger than I am.
Right.
So we had sort of a different relationship.
There's a different dynamic at work.
But just that sense of like, if it wasn't weird, I would totally hang out with you. Yeah, like if I was Ethan's age, like I would want to be friends with you. It's cool. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And you're really close with Emma, obviously.
Yeah, because it's just been the two of us, and we're not exactly alike. We're alike in many ways, but a lot of people think, oh, you spend so much time together that you're going to be clones, but she's got her own politics. she's got her own beliefs, and she'll challenge me in her gentle way. Yeah, she's.
What age do you think that it really started? Because she just turned 16.
Yeah.
So at what age do you really feel like she started becoming her own person?
Probably 10. Or 11, really, for her. It started clicking on, I don't have to be like you, Mom. Thank God. But, but, at the same time, we'll rock out and have full concerts in the car together, and that's a fun thing.
Yeah. And you mentioned she sings really well. Yeah. And she killed it to do Run Run again last night.
Yeah, she did. She's so good.
Undisputed. We got to get a wrestling belt for her because she just wins that.
Yeah.
She likes to rhyme. Yeah, yes.
Oh, cool. Well, I watched, I started a new Netflix series.
Yeah.
That got pretty heavily promoted, the Santa Clarita Diet.
My daughter was watching that. Alyssa was watching that.
With
Drew Barrymore,
Timothy Oliphant, and then a bunch of, like, one of the girls from It's Always Sunny is in it. The kid from Son of Zorn is in it. Like there's all these recognizable faces in it. And I found it really funny. And it's... Someone's needed to do this with the zombie genre.
Can you kind of give the premise?
It's just, that's what's great about
it.
It's like, blah, 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 she's a zombie. And so they decide, but she's very alive and active, just like a person, but her heart is no longer beating, and she needs to eat human flesh.
Right.
And so, as a family, they kind of decide to support that. And, some of the kills are some people are deserving of being killed, and some of them are kind of incidental. But they're trying to justify their own morality in how they choose to support and feed her.
Interesting. So but it's funny. It's like
it's a comedy. It's
a lighthearted
comic morality. I mean, the way I'm describing it, that sounds kind of tough to pull off, but in a comic morality, it really works.
It's interesting to see the different variations on the zombie motif. Have you seen iZombie on the CW?
No.
So it's a girl she becomes a zombie, but it turns out that she works as like a medical examiner. So she has access to as much brains as she wants anytime, because she's doing autopsies.
They're not fresh though, right?
I guess not. Well,
I guess it's okay.
Well,
right?
She's doing autopsies of people who have died, but when she eats their brains, she takes on their memories and their personality and solves their murder.
Nifty.
Oh my gosh!
So it's a police procedural as well. Zombie, romantic comedy, police procedural. Yeah.
I've never heard of this. Yeah. Now I'm so interested in iZombie. Wow, that's really cool.
And it violates kind of the rule that I have just in general. Yeah. Like if you're throwing more than 2 concepts into a show, none of those concepts are strong enough individually. It's a little bit like Philly cheesesteak pizza. Like, we can't make a good Philly cheesesteak, and our pizza's crap. But we combine the two, and we'll bring your expectations low enough that this will be okay. But no, it actually really works. It's like romantic comedy, police procedural, zombie stuff, a little bit of horror.
I think you have to do that, because I think everything's been done.
Yeah.
So I think that in a way you have to cross-pollinate now.
Policewoman just doesn't cut it.
No, it doesn't.
No,
but I'm writing iZombie down. I must watch this.
Watch
you've got my attention.
It's actually cute. It's really it's based on a comic book, and in the comic book, I don't know if he's shown up in the show, but in the comic book, there's a character who he's like a werewolf, but instead of being bitten by a wolf, he was bitten by what was it, like a Pomeranian or a Shih Tzu or something, and so that he turns into like a
little yippy werewolf.
Now, isn't it funny that our culture's come to a place now where rather than basing movies on classic novels, now really the shows that kind of work is comic books that we're really pulling from that source. They're becoming, the writers, so to speak, that are going to survive this age.
Well, it says
a lot about this age, I think.
Well, it's just this content. Well, it's something that Jack Kirby, who is a great comic artist, visionary comic artist, said a long time ago, was that, in 30 years, Hollywood will get all their ideas from comics. This was in the 70s. And everyone was like, okay,
sure
Jack.
Will, Jack.
But I mean, Jack Kirby.
Here we are.
Jack Kirby, co-creator of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
Co-created Captain America with Joe Simon in the 40s. Did all his stuff with DC in the 70s. Like, just, he's the best. And he was right, as it turns out. One of my favorite Jack Kirby quotes is he was at some swanky library gallery showing or whatever, and Jack Kirby was a kid from a low rent part of the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Like he was from the bad part of town in the 20s and 30s, and grew up just tough. When he was drawing Captain America, it was obviously the first cover is him punching Hitler, Captain America punching Hitler, and so the Nazis, the American Nazis, would call and say, "Why don't you come downstairs? Because there's a bunch of us down here to string you up on a light pole." And so he would just put down his pencil and go get in the elevator and go downstairs, and just like, okay, he's like, you can't let people intimidate, you can't let people, and so that was just his attitude.
Unfortunately, he didn't get strung up on a tent pole.
No, he said he'd go down to the lobby and they wouldn't be there, because he would stand up to him. But they moved to California later in his life, and he's at some swanky L.A. Gallery showing, and this librarian comes up to him and says, "Mr. Kirby, do you think that comics reflect reality?" And he said, "No, I think that comics transcend reality." And she said, "Well, maybe if comics reflected reality, they would be a little more popular." And he said, "Madam, when you reflect reality, you get everything backwards. It's only when you transcend reality that you have an idea of what's really going on."
Man, that's a great quote.
He is like,
holy crap!
But you have to imagine a dude with like a heavy Brooklyn accent.
Holy crap, that's awesome.
He was fantastic. Kirby is the best.
Wow.
And he was right.
Now I need to know a little bit more about him.
Yeah, Jack Kirby.
Jack Kirby.
We should make a list.
Yeah, I do this every week.
We do it every week, and then he doesn't do any of it.
No, but I'm still listening to Simon Sinek. Well, actually, I haven't since that one week. I listened to. I kind of did a lot of Simon Sinek, but I have a. Well, we'll get to the podcast.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah.
But I do want to talk about. So last week we were talking about 80s movies and personalities.
Yes,
I got a little follow-up. I don't know if you saw, I put a follow-up on Chris McPeace.
Yes.
He really did. He kind of got out of the business.
Really?
I didn't read, like, what happened or why or anything about that. But he's recently worked as an AD, as an assistant director on a couple of Canadian films. He's Canadian.
Yeah.
He's in his mid-50s, so he's a few years older than me. And yeah, so after, really, the horror movie that I was trying to think of that he did was called Vamp. It was him, and I think it was Grace Jones played a vampire in it.
Oh, okay.
That kind of thing.
Right.
And then there were a couple of 90s TV movies that didn't really go, and so he just kind of drifted out of the business.
Just had a nice nice little career for a little bit, and then so kind of like that Anthony Michael Hall kind of thing. Had a career, had a nice career, and then ended up sort of bouncing around. And
but he did the television series The Dead Zone.
The Dead Zone,
and that had a 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah,
that had a good run.
But he'd sort of transitioned from that when he was doing Weird Science and he had like
some missing. There were some missing years between that and
then he came back and he looked like hell.
He was.
He was older. I guess
he was a very cute kid, and he was he was a less cute adult. I guess he was such a cute kid.
He looked rough. Yeah, just looked rough. I can't say it. Not that
I don't know anything about lifestyle or anything else, but there was certainly that. It was fitting for that role. Did you ever see the original? Speaking back to the 80s, did you ever see The Dead Zone? With Chris Walken and Martin Sheen. That's one of my favorites from that era.
Is that a Stephen King?
Yeah, it's a Stephen King wrote. Yeah. See, this is the time I used to read all of Stephen King's books and see all of Stephen King's movies. Yeah. And I thought they both had value separate from one another. Right. I thought they did a good job making. They're just two different medium. But yeah, Dead Zone was fantastic.
The ice is going to break.
I like how he broke. Yeah, he broke reality and just like turned away and saw like the house on fire.
Yeah,
and he turned back to his reality and said, and showed what talked about what he was seeing. And it showed it to us, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So. And see, I've kind of, I've done at least 2 derivative scripts of that where, there's a touch.
Yeah.
Right.
And I wrote one with a friend of mine in the early 90s, and then I had a police film, A Stone Unturned, that, that was kind of his way of, touching someone's energy or whatever and getting the psychic flash. And I'm like, crap, man, I'm just stealing the Dead Zone. And I'm rewriting the Dead Zone.
And then little did you know that M. Night Shyamalan would put that in Unbreakable.
What did he do in Unbreakable?
Bruce Willis could, as people walk by him and they would touch him, he could see like their whatever.
Man, I'm in his headspace a lot. There's a scene at the end of Signs, when Mel Gibson's wife, they flash to how she was killed and stuff. Like that is in the original transition script. Like I wrote that scene. I saw it in the movie, and I was just like, oh my god!
That's
like
crazy.
You just know. We talked about that last week.
Right?
You're in that same.
Yeah.
Nobody stole anybody's ideas. You were just pulling out of that same soup.
Right.
And it came down looking almost exactly the same. It's like, wow.
And the ironic thing would be if in a plot twist he was stealing your ideas.
Yeah.
The twist at the end of
he's
peeking through your window. Like,
he's an interesting filmmaker that kind of started. He got off the a really good start, and then it's like each one got a little weaker until
Do
they're
you
kind
think-
of unwatchable. Although Split is supposed to be kind of
I've heard
watchable
it's
now.
I've heard it's good, but do you think that he would fall? I was thinking about this cleaning the kitchen the other day. That there's a grouping of filmmakers that I think would fall into accidental genius, right? Like they make. I think Kevin Smith falls into accidental genius to a degree, and I like Kevin Smith movies, but Clerks was such a big sort of transformative thing, but you get the real, like looking at his later works, looking at sort of how he approaches stuff, and he's very open about talking about his process. Maybe accidental genius.
Yeah. Kevin Smith, definitely accidental genius. And I love Kevin Smith, but he loves to hear himself write.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just he write, look how clever I am. The dialogue is not realistic, and occasionally there are some funny observations and stuff. But, I can do with or without Kevin Smith. He seems like a really cool guy. I actually enjoy his podcasts and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he's definitely accidental genius. I don't feel like that. I think M. Night, he certainly had it at the beginning. He wrote a film called Wide Awake that was a really neat little film, and then he did Sixth Sense, which I just think is genius work.
Right.
Unbreakable was darn close to that.
Yes, Unbreakable was good.
And I liked Signs.
Right.
And I liked the one after it, The Village. But, you can see it's dropping off a little each film.
It seemed to me like that as like every the next iteration was like, how do I surprise people at the end of this? How do I, and like you can go to that well a certain number of times, but then people also become inured to that, and they expect the twist, and then how can you deliver that on a consistent basis?
And I think I don't know, but I think he began to really believe all the genius stuff that was being written about him.
Yeah.
I think he kind of became a little bit of a victim of that. It would have really behooved him, I think, to have done something different. Get out of the psychological thriller drama.
Right.
Get out of the genre and do something different. You know, do a nice
door slamming farce.
Yeah, and I know he did. Was it the Airbender or whatever? And
it was terrible.
Apparently that was
bad,
awful.
Well, he did that. The Lady in the Water.
Yeah,
which was.
When it got bad, I stopped watching.
Well, like so
I can't even really speak to them.
The Lady in the Water was I guess a story that he'd told his kids, like a bedtime story, and transformed it into a movie. And all of the characters are. It's a really complicated mythology inside the movie, but all the characters have a role to play with this woman who shows up in the pool of this apartment complex. And so like they all have a different role, but they don't know what role they're all supposed to occupy. Mm-hmm. But like they all have traits that are really on the nose, like really like one of you is the protector, and then you have to figure out, like, okay, well, who's the protector? And it's like, this character has this really specific character trait that's really, like,
I hate it. I don't even want to see
And then there's a part where
Except Paul Giamatti's in it.
Yes, and he's excellent at it. But
yeah, he's always excellent.
There's a part where, like, there's someone who's critical of the plan or something, and it's like there's this whole meta commentary on critics and how critics are wrong. And, the critic actually gets, like, torn apart by wild animals. So it's like, you're working through some stuff here. Like, I understand your last movie didn't do well, but...
Yeah,
that sounds painful.
I've got a Roger Ebert quote. Remind me later, but when we get to quotes.
What do you generally watch, Vicki?
I'm not so much into television right now. Even movies, kind of just... Yeah, walked away from the whole thing. I spend a lot of time using TV as a background. It's Frasier and Golden Girls.
Okay. I mean? Absolutely.
There certainly was an era where, television sometimes, I went through it, like when my father passed. I don't know what it was. I got comfort from Family Guy.
Yeah.
And I still often, like, can't sleep, whatever, will just put Family Guy on roll through. There's something about that show that gives me comfort.
That is so strange.
I
get it.
Familiarity with the character, something, because they're, it's animation. There's some something that's like safe and fictional, and I can throw myself into that fantasy.
It's
of
removed,
these characters. Yeah, there's something. So I understand that television is comfort.
Yeah.
Well, there's a theory too that when you're going through times of real like stress or uncertainty, that you fall back on like watching movies or TV shows that
right.
because it gives you that sense of comfort that you know how it's going to end. You know what the ending is going to be. You know the rhythms of the show, and it's not going to surprise you with anything. Yeah. I do it with Mystery Science Theater. I'll fall back on that and watch Mystery Science Theater. Yeah.
My wife does it with Friends. There's there's all 10 seasons there on that bottom shelf. She has all 10 seasons on DVD. We still record them on the DVR often. And it's like, but you have all the DVD.
You never know.
You never know what
medium you're going to need
that Friends fix. But it has that same thing. Like I like, and I understand that because I like the show too.
Yeah.
Like,
you have
these are my friends.
that
I like
cozy,
my friends.
Yeah, you have your friends. You have that cozy atmosphere. The set. The set feels like part of your home.
Yeah.
And the rhythms of the of Friends, especially a lot of those mid and late 90s sitcoms have a very particular rhythm to them in terms of how like the setup of the episode and parallel storylines and how they weave together. And
there's nothing accidental. The feeling is the feeling is manipulated in a certain direction at a certain time at a certain point in that. I mean, it's very intentional to give you that comforting effect. And I think we're losing that a lot with Netflix. First season, I felt like that the first season of Kimmy Schmidt, the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Like I felt very comfortable with. I just liked her so much.
Right.
Second season, I mean, it's good and the characters are going where they need to go, but I didn't feel the comfort that I felt in the first season.
Well, the first season was written as an NBC project.
And
so it was written in that sort of 30 Rock vein, and then in the second season they knew it was going to be Netflix, so they could expand the episodes. They weren't constrained to 24 minutes or whatever. It's interesting. I think I do wonder if we move further and further away from that, as you're not bound by, well, this episode's 40 minutes, that episode's 38 minutes. You're not necessarily as stuck with, look, this has to be 45 minutes, this has to be 48 minutes, so we can throw commercials in.
I think that's awesome. I mean, creatively, that it's fantastic. I'm sure it's frustrating to people that like to put their entertainment in a box like that.
Yeah.
But Netflix is like, no, do what you need, and that's what's so. What I really enjoyed about the OA was I found it completely unpredictable.
Yeah.
And some episodes were 50 minutes long, some episodes were 25 minutes long. Each episode was exactly as long as it needed to be.
Right.
I recently read an article about Britt Marling, the female lead and creator of it, and it was just real artist types, done some kind of out there stuff in her life, and I enjoyed that. But we've talked about the OA before.
Well, it's weird because part of the one of the big commercials in the Super Bowl was Stranger Things 2. Which
Halloween
gets back to the 80s as well. Because I was thinking we talked about 80s movies last week, and an 80s movie that popped in my head that I'd completely forgotten about. Because I was thinking about John Lithgow and Christopher Lloyd, just for whatever reason, and how they've been in so many different things, and they've done so much stuff. And I remembered The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension.
Oh my God! Yeah,
it's probably one of. It's a movie that. Let's see who's in it. Peter Weller is in it. Clancy Brown is in it. Jeff Goldblum is in it. Christopher Lloyd. John Lithgow.
Yeah.
It seems like I'm forgetting a couple other people. I can't remember the woman that's in it. Ellen Barkin.
Ellen Barkin's in it.
It's like an all-star, and it's written in a way kind of like when you watch Star Wars, the original Star Wars. If you've never seen Star Wars before, you watch it, and it says Episode 4, A New Hope, and then it tells you all this stuff about characters that you have no idea who they're talking about. And then they just go, here you go.
Yeah.
Here's your movie. And Buckaroo Banzai is that same way. It's like...
Well, it's, it benefited from being in the early days of VHS.
Yeah.
It is, what they consider, a cult classic.
Yes.
Didn't do very well.
No,
at that time.
It's such a weird movie.
Well, I can't say I love Buckaroo Banzai as much as I know I'm supposed to say it that I love Buckaroo Banzai. It's not great, but there's some funny thing. I mean, he's a brain surgeon, a rock star, and a rocket scientist. So that's what the character goes from, between those three things in the course of his day. Right. That's a funny gag. Yeah. But it doesn't really sustain the movie.
I think, to me, it's one of my favorite movies. Well, yeah, I would put it in the top 20 favorite movies, just in terms of its ability. Again, it drops you into this world. It's like watching a James Bond movie, but not like the first James Bond movie.
Right.
It's watching the third James Bond movie and just going, here's another James Bond adventure, and you're like, who's James Bond? I don't understand what any of this stuff is. And they just go, oh, look, it's Buckaroo Banzai. And everybody knows who Buckaroo Banzai is. Yep. Everyone in the world knows who Buckaroo Banzai is. And it's presented as, Buckaroo Banzai. And so you start going like, why do I not remember Buckaroo Banzai? I should know this.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I don't mind something.
And then he can see like all of the, there's red and black Lectroids from the 8th dimension who are posing as humans.
Right, and he can see the difference.
He can see the difference.
Is it because he got some treat?
No, he gets a call from the president, and when he goes to answer the call, he gets shot.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And he writes down this equation, and he goes back to this press conference that he's in, and he sees the red Lectroids.
Yeah, he's like a nuclear physicist or something. I can't remember what the rocket said. Yeah.
And he jumps up, evil! Red Lectroids from the 8th dimension. Peter Weller just in this tour de force.
I need to see it in my adult life. Yeah. I mean, my 18, 19, 20-year-old self watched it many times over many gallons of beer because it was an early VHS that happened in this basement, Vicki.
Yes, I know I know about your VHS collection from this basement. I'm scarred by it. Yeah.
No, there weren't too many dirty ones there. Mostly it was
the little Santa guy.
Oh yeah, yeah, there was that one. Okay, so there, but I was a teenager at the time.
It's completely normal.
I was a teenager at one time, and that would scare me still.
Completely normal, completely natural.
Definitely.
No, I think go back. I don't know that it hangs together really well as a movie, but it has a lot of really interesting. It has a lot of really interesting parts and stuff going on in it, and the way it's thrown together as you should completely understand what's happening. Like it takes the position like if you don't understand what's happening in this movie, it's on you.
Yeah,
because this is all stuff that everybody else understands, and so you just sort of have to go like, I get it. I totally got it.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's
a bold position.
It's a bold position to take.
Yeah.
And like
who directed? Do you have any idea?
I don't remember.
I'm kind of curious if they went on to do anything else because it was a bold film. It was memorable.
And it did not do well.
Yeah.
And the dude who wrote it, I can't remember the guy's name.
But it became a cult classic. I mean, like
and for a while he kept up this fiction that he had been writing that there were multiple Buckaroo Banzai adventures, and that people he would present it like people should remember it. So I don't know if it was like a performance art piece.
It sounds like he was a little delusional there.
And it was delusion within and without the movie there.
Of course, you all know what's.
And he's been talking for 35 years about Buckaroo Banzai takes on the World Crime Organization or whatever. It's It's really and all the Lectroids are all named John.
That's right,
and they have different last names. And John and Christopher Lloyd's.
Lloyd's like one of the main ones.
Yes, and he's John Big Booty.
I have a vague recollection of it.
It's I don't know. That was an '80s movie that I thought that's an '80s movie that I was really into. That really not that people don't remember. Yeah.
Boy, The dog's going crazy here. So we've got Emma's upstairs, dog sitting today.
It's kind of like when Matt was telling us about Enemy Territory.
Oh my God, Matt went into a 30-minute discussion of Enemy Territory, a movie that starred
Ray Parker
Jr.
Oh no!
But the DP on it was Ernest Dickerson, who does all of Spike Lee's films. So
which is crazy.
There's like all this reason around this movie should have been, and nobody remembered it except for Matt.
Well, it was released
who gave us the frame by frame replay of the entire movie.
He broke it down. It sounded kind of like almost like a Death Wish kind of movie.
Yeah.
Charles Bronson. What's his name? Charles Bronson.
Yeah.
It was Empire Productions, Empire Films, which was Charles Band's, whatever, and they did Ghoulies and a bunch of kind of B movies. Just weird. It's so strange when someone brings up a movie that I haven't heard of in some context, but that was one. I've never heard of that movie.
All right, well, let's bring it up to current. What are you watching? What are you listening to right now this week?
Let's see. This week, I was actually watching. Ethan and I were watching this show on Netflix, The White Rabbit Experience, The White Rabbit Project, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
And it's the build team from Mythbusters, so Grant, Tori, and Carrie. And it's like just these different episodes of one was crazy, the strangest weapons of World War II. So, and they recreate these weapons and look at these different things and then rank them. Like they'll pick 6 and then rank them 1 through 6 in terms of top 6 craziest jailbreaks, and they try and recreate some of the technology and stuff.
Neat.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Anything listening, watching?
The last movie I saw was The Secret Life of Pets this summer. Or later.
I didn't see that one. The kids went to see it when I was out of town.
Emma wanted to see it, so we saw it.
And
it was cute, a lot of chase scenes, kind of.
Yeah.
Action.
I saw it twice actually. Yeah.
Well, and you had Louis C.K. did a voice. Anytime we get him in an animated thing, I'm in.
And the only thing I took issue with was that they go from somewhere in Midtown Manhattan to Brooklyn and back, animals on foot, crossing the river and then back, all in one day, before the owner gets home.
Yeah.
It was, and there was a lot of death and destruction implied in that movie. There's a scene where the rabbit, who is the bad guy, Kevin Hart does the bad guy.
Another guy, I just think is so, everything comes out of his mouth is so funny.
He's driving a bus back, I guess, across the Brooklyn Bridge into Manhattan, and he is actively running cars off the bridge and smashing into cars. And you're just thinking how many people are dying in this movie? How many? I'm watching.
You're way too sensitive for animated films, I think.
No, it was just wreaking havoc. It was like Cloverfield, but monsters smashing them. You're like, what is happening?
Why?
Yeah.
What about you? What are you watching? There's a couple of podcasts that really caught me this week. I'll start with the lesser one, which was Mark Maron had Bill Paxton on.
That would be interesting.
And it was much more interesting than you even thought, because it just seems like the nicest guy in the world, who has literally been in everything. He's been around, since the 80s. Touched a little bit on weird science, but so much has happened since then in his life and stuff. Talked a lot about his upbringing in Texas and stuff, and it was just a really, talk about a guy who just is grateful for the life he has and, brings it into his work all the time. Yeah. Always looking for new and creative things to do.
So I always get him confused with Bill Pullman.
Yeah, I know. There was always that.
Right.
And they did a movie together.
Did
there was
they really?
Paxton Pullman product.
Oh, Lord.
It was an independent film, and the title is escaping me. But yeah, it starred Bill Paxton and Bill Pullman.
That's crazy.
And I'm sure that the producers just thought, let's put the two.
Well, Bill Paxton. Yeah. So Bill Paxton, okay, so not the president from Independence Day.
No, that's Bill Pullman.
Right.
Yeah,
so Bill Paxton.
Bill Paxton or Pullman?
Has one of the most quoted lines in science fiction. This is a bug hunt, man.
Yeah,
this is a bug hunt.
Yeah.
From Aliens.
talked a lot about all those experiences, but
That's
more
cool.
so than that, like I said, he talked about his life and his parents, his upbringing.
That's cool.
His outlook on things, and I really enjoyed
he from
that
Texas?
conversation. Yeah, from Texas.
Yeah.
And but the big one that I texted you midweek,
Yes, yeah.
is Tim Ferriss's interview with Adam Robinson.
Yeah, and I listened to it. Yeah,
I've listened to it I think 4 times now,
Yeah.
and I'll probably listen to it 5.
yeah.
There was so much in this interview about leading an effective life.
Yeah, yeah.
He's ultra successful hedge fund advisor now, but he's had a lot of careers, including a chess champion and a lot of startups in between.
Mm-hmm.
But was mostly just talking about living life, being present in the present moment, trying to make each person's life better just by being in contact with them.
Right.
It's almost indescribable, the whole podcast, but I haven't enjoyed a podcast that much in a long time.
That's crazy. Oh, you know what I did see over the weekend was the HBO documentary on Edward Snowden.
Oh,
Citizen
yeah,
4.
yeah.
Terrifying.
Really?
Really terrifying. Like when you dig down into what he's revealing, yeah, it's just in terms of the surveillance state and the capabilities of the surveillance state, it's really just yeah. I mean,
All right,
really,
I guess I gotta listen.
You gotta watch. It's the interesting thing that they did is it's shot. It's Glenn Greenwald and Lauren. I can't remember her name, but they're shooting it. They've been getting anonymous communications with somebody in the NSA named Citizen 4, and basically this is when he wants to come public. They go to Hong Kong, meet him in a hotel room, and as he's revealing the information, as the leaks are coming out and they're writing the stories, they're filming the documentary with him as he's passing them the information and they're filing the stories.
Holy crap!
And then it's
Right.
and then as it starts to break, they have to get him. Well, they're not actively doing it, but he's working with China to get out of China somewhere, before they catch up to it. It is really
at
crazy.
a certain level. I'm a little bit ignorant of this stuff,
Yeah.
blissfully ignorant. But it's hard to be blissfully ignorant in politics right now because our leadership is so. Anyway,
It's all right.
yeah, I try to stay out of politics, but
Yeah.
and I've made a migration this week from. I've gone back to Pinterest. I am.
Do tell.
Gonna get
Me
crafty.
and all my girlfriends. It's not crafty. I'm like positive quote guy.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
okay.
Okay.
And I have hundreds of those pinned up. And Facebook was making me really tense.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I didn't want to play into the divide that was coming up, but I was hiding people that I didn't want to. I didn't want to hear their point of view anymore.
Right.
And making judgments about that person and their character that in many people I know better. I know them face to face. They're not.
I'll say I'm surprised. I'm surprised Facebook has not directly intervened somehow, because it has to be. They're either making money off of it somehow, or it has to be detrimental to their business, because it is just. I don't know anybody's Facebook feed that is not radioactive at this point.
No, yeah, but the attention is still on it. Now,
Yeah.
what will be detrimental to the business is if people really get off of it. I mean,
Yeah.
and
I've
their
cut back.
advertising.
I've cut
I
back.
have
Yeah.
cut back because of it.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
But I have to advertise. I have businesses I have to
Yeah.
advertise.
Yeah.
I have classes I have to
Yeah.
advertise.
Right.
I have to engage with the public in a way.
Yeah.
I try to keep that on the positive, but my God, it's toxic.
it's-
And then you just get that one irresistible, oh, you can't say that.
Yeah.
and then,
That's not
and then
true.
you're into it, and then I've lost another friend.
Yeah, I'm not easily offended, but there have been a few things when I say, "Oh, people like you don't care."
Right.
That is the assumption.
Yeah.
You don't know me. No,
Yeah.
my
Excuse
politics
me.
extend all over the place.
Right.
That is the problem with partisan politics right now. Is if you support this, then you if you support A, you automatically support B,
exactly.
D, E, and F.
Right.
And I'm like,
And
no, that's not true. They're all different issues, and
Yeah.
I do not always fall on the.
Right.
We had a talk about vaccinations this week. I don't want to talk about vaccinations, but vaccinations is characterized as a conservative issue. I would see like that is an issue that if you really look at the issue, that should be an issue that would be a liberal issue, and somehow that got it's become a conservative issue. So a lot of liberals reject it because of the anti-vaxxers, because they're conservatives. I'm like, this is something I don't understand why this is a conservative issue and not a liberal issue.
Well, I think when you get out on the fringes a little bit more, like when you get out to like looking at Glenn Greenwald, for example, he is a big proponent of dismantling the surveillance state, you know, having very strict constitutional powers on the executive office and the executive branch. You know, like this is, you know, not a strict constitutionalist necessarily, but very, very strict. And it dovetails, and so he's far on the left on this.
Right.
And it dovetails with people who are libertarian, who are far on the right on the other side in terms of personal liberty and you know, the powers of the, you know, there's consensus in these different places, but I don't know.
I'm confused about what
I've got a prevailing theory. It's called inverted totalitarianism. Just look it up.
All right. Well, my point about all this is like
so you went to Pinterest. That's how far you've gone. You've gone to Pinterest.
When I get on there, it doesn't make me feel good. So I went when I get on Pinterest and read some positive quotes and look at some recipes I might want to try.
There you go.
And look at how to make my butt tighter.
Some toilet paper cozies.
100
toilet paper
uses for the mason jar. You know.
Yeah,
exactly.
That makes me feel good, and I know that's I'm going to get teased a lot for being very chick-like, but I'm definitely very chick-like. As far I love Pinterest, and I'm putting that positive stuff in my head because the negativity in my head does not. It ruins my day. It makes me feel shitty.
Right.
I can't be of service to the people around me and uplift people around me
if you're feeling
when
bad
I'm
all
like,
the time.
Oh man, the world's gonna explode.
And I felt
He's gonna start a war.
Yeah, that's how I felt. Like you can't walk around all the time just going, oh my God, what's going to happen now? What's going to, you know, like, you know, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And,
but and I also argue too that my contribution to it, like, if I'm contributing more of the anger, fear, dread to the atmosphere, that contributes to the anger, fear, dread in the atmosphere.
Right.
I'm a big person on energies. I like to contribute some positive upliftment to it.
You have to like who you are. Yeah.
Yes.
What's coming out of you more than anything else.
Yeah.
My only issue with Pinterest is that if I'm looking for something, like let's say I'm doing a Google image search for something and something pops up on someone's Pinterest.
Yeah.
And I go like, oh, that's what I'm, you know, like sometimes I want to see like.
Why don't you just join? Why don't you just join?
Because I'm not a joiner, and I shouldn't have to join. I should not have to join.
We'll let you in our little girl club
for the free and open exchange of information on the internet.
Just admit who you are.
What are we, communist Russia now? Pinterest?
Now
I got to join.
It's a social media site.
I know.
It's just a different form. It's just pictures instead of words.
I know, but it just
flowers.
It's like sometimes
nuclear weapons.
I don't want to have to. I don't want to have to commit to that level to see like the hand puppet that you built.
Why don't you just admit who you are? Carl.
No, I am not, I will not. I will. My daughter, my oldest daughter, describes Pinterest as Reddit for girls. Like if you've been on Reddit, because it's kind of like
I like Reddit, but it's not all positive.
It's not all positive.
There's probably negative stuff on Pinterest too. I've just never seen it. I don't collect that stuff. I don't.
Nazi hate doilies and.
Now, that would be funny, finding if they turn Pinterest into a hate bed of awfulness, that would be it.
Some nasty pictures.
We don't really comment on stuff. You just pin stuff that you like, that you connect to.
I want that. You go through.
I want this. Here's a neat project.
I've made some Hitler throw pillows and.
Look, I want that.
here's the pattern. People are like, oh, what did you stuff those
nice.
with? Yeah, exactly.
Nice swastikas.
Yeah, it's really is that needlepoint? That's nice. That takes a
yeah.
long time. That's a commitment. Yeah.
But then something happened on Facebook 2 nights ago that I have to point out. Again, like I said, I have to go on there sometimes. I'm not spending hours and hours trolling anymore. Not that I troll or fighting trolls, I should say. But I went on after the Patriots won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to preface this by saying I didn't even have any interest.
Care.
I barely wanted to watch the Super Bowl other than to get together with some friends.
Right.
Well, the Falcons were up 28-3. Tom Brady mounts a historic comeback, and they come back and win. And so I just said, there is no disputing it. He is the best quarterback ever. I don't like Tom Brady. I don't. But what ensued was, pages and pages in my feed of, but it was a vitriol that was like, well, let's fight. It was so much more pleasant to fight about this thing that doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter, right?
And I don't ultimately care, and I don't think anybody was arguing cared. And then I followed it up the next day with stating that LeBron James was the greatest of all time, prompting more vitriol.
So you've become what you hate. You've become a troll.
But the trolling was like there was my old friend Lauren Green commented this morning. He was like, this is like being in a virtual barbershop.
Yeah.
This is okay because we're like, come on, you're full of crap. You can't say that. Michael Jordan's the best. You can't say that. Kobe Bryant was the best. You can't, but there's no, like, ultimately, it doesn't matter.
You're not trying to draw blood on someone's personality and ruin get them fired or what. I don't know.
But what is the difference? Why is that so different?
I don't know. And I had to step back because I have views on the left, I have views on the right, and a couple in the middle. And I was getting slammed from both sides instead of supported from both sides. They're picking out the things they don't like. And, people that I thought knew me a little bit, it's like, wow, where is this coming from? And I don't even think this is about me at all.
Right, yeah.
But,
well, I think that's part of it. I think politics has become this...
we're not, and here's what I think the point is that we're not talking, and I guess it came up a little with Tom Brady, but we're not talking about policies anymore. We're arguing about, it is personality politics. We're talking about, I'll say it, I think that he is a despicable human being. And that's the problem. I'm not supposed to disrespect the president by saying something like that, but no, I think he's a despicable human being. And I question his ability to run this country. It's not about there was a moment before the game where George and Barbara Bush did the coin toss. I had tears in my eyes watching this, but more so not just because they're old now and they're probably not going to be with us a whole lot longer, but remembering a time whenever I did not agree with George Herbert Walker Bush's politics in 1992. I was from 88 to 92. I guess that was kind of the period where I went from being a Republican to being to taking on the politics of my parents to thinking for myself and becoming a Democrat at that time. So I didn't agree with him at that time, but I did not hate or disrespect him. Exactly. Like I could go, you're making policies that I don't agree with, but this is a respectable human being.
Yeah. Right.
So the disagreement was a little less charged or something.
Right. You're really seeing the people who are acting out. You're seeing something in people that you thought you knew, that or strangers, but and their assumptions about me, I'm seeing something new about them.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and it's surprising and it's new.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think again, there is a political theory that is put forward, and if you read Sheldon Wolden's Democracy Incorporated, which is essentially this idea.
I love the
title.
title.
It's a fantastic book, and it's basically this idea of a managed democracy where you you focus on, you keep the trappings of democracy. Like you want people to vote, but you don't energize the population to the full population to vote. You want the lowest turnout possible and then you put two choices up that no one's really excited about, and then when one of them wins, you go, the system works. You know, of all the people who could vote, 15 people showed up, and 8 of them chose me. The system works, and it's like that's, and then and policy debates are about things that politics, the political process, cannot fix. You will never come to a political consensus on abortion. Right. Because there is no compromise on the two positions. So it's something that the political process cannot fix, but it's put forward so that so that you can stake out an ideological territory.
But see, you're only grabbing one. No, I don't. There's no compromise on abortion. There really isn't. But there are plenty of compromises on health care. Right. There are plenty of compromises on national security. Well, there are plenty. You know, there pretty much every other thing. Yeah. Abortion, you're really pointing out one that there's kind of no. You're either going to do this or not do this.
But at the same time, Obamacare was the right-wing healthcare alternative. That is the plan that was published by the Heritage Foundation in the 90s. There's nowhere to go on the right of that. You can't institute something on the right of that. You have to go to the left. Because there is nothing left on the right. That was the right-wing healthcare alternative. Right. And if the president says, we're going to cover everyone regardless of your ability to pay, and it'll be cheaper than Obamacare, there is no plan on the right that can actually make that happen, because we've already done the far right version of that. So, and again, it gets into inverted totalitarianism and how that works, and there's two different versions of that. Sheldon Wolin was a brilliant guy, and the way that he lays all of this out, it's I don't know that it's exactly the prevailing theory that I have at this point, but it answers a lot of questions where you go like, okay, you know, it doesn't necessarily lead to great conclusions, because one of the conclusions is what Christopher Hedges would say is essentially, look, the only option we have left is mass nonviolent civil disobedience. Like, that's the only option you have left, which
is happening right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's turn
so anyway,
this a little bit.
or you can sign up for Pinterest.
Or you can sign
that is the other option.
That's what I'm saying. Sign up for Pinterest, or have arguments about sports figures, things that don't freaking matter. Who
you
cares?
could do that too. Yeah, exactly.
I still think LeBron.
I don't know that LeBron is the best. Michael Jordan, I think, has to be. I think he has to be number one, and Kobe is in that conversation.
I think he certainly changed the game at his time. But no, if you want. The greatest of all time, by any definition, I'm sorry, is Bill Russell.
Bill Russell,
there's he's got 11 wearing. You're not going to beat 11 rings.
I would argue the greatest quarterback of all time was Johnny Unitas. I mean, Unitas and his. I mean, Johnny Unitas in the championship game in '56 when they played the Giants at the Polo Grounds, and they're down late. And Unitas basically invents the hurry up offense and the 2-minute drill on the field, and he's calling all his own plays in a time when the defense could slap you on the side of the helmet, could punch you, would stick their finger in your eye or whatever, could hit you while you were on the bottom of the pile, and he orchestrates the tying score as time expires, and then in overtime puts together a drive and wins the game.
How many times did he do that? Because Brady just got number 5. And that's the thing. It's a consistency over time. I don't like Tom Brady. And I think he cheated for at least one of those rings.
I think so. But
there's 4 that he didn't.
You have to look at... you would have to pull up and compare... Here's the difficult thing. It's like comparing guys in baseball. Because can you compare Walter Johnson when he pitched for the Washington Senators in 1905 to... Clayton Kershaw now,
right?
So you can't compare them, side by side, because it's in terms of conditioning, in terms of whatever, radically different. But you have to compare them to who they stacked up against in their own era, and Unitas is like miles ahead of anybody else in his era of the quarterbacks that played when he played.
You know what? Next time we are going to argue about who has the best Pinterest inspiration board? That's what next week's argument is. My inspiration board is so much more inspiring than your inspiration.
Well, it's like,
you're gonna start stalking Pinterest and trolling all these people.
Let's see if we can destroy Pinterest. Follow me.
I have the best candles.
Yes,
my candles.
2 weeks from now, and Pinterest is like that. Cormac McCarthy's The Road. It's like a guy and his son pushing a shopping cart through the nuclear wasteland.
Heather Flesher's got a great Pinterest story that I'll tell, because a couple years ago, everybody saw this great picture of the trampoline where they dug a hole, put the trampoline down on the ground, so you have the ground level trampoline. So Flesher sees this on Pinterest and tries it and digs a hole. But she kind of lives a little bit like on a slope and stuff. On an incline. So they get out the next morning and half the holes caved in. They dig it out. They paid the people to come out and dig it out. They dig it out again. It still keeps sliding. Then the rains come and it fills with mud. So she had this complete disaster based on one of those good ideas on Pinterest.
So now it's like a tiger pit with a trampoline in the bottom of it.
They ended up filling it in and just saying, this is not going to work. So, on that note, on our Pinterest note, what did you... This is something we like to ask every week, because we think that we live in an increasingly technology-dependent world, and while I love technology, I do... I think we've kind of gotten to a max with technology, and a lot of... getting off of Facebook and stuff is like stepping back and going, so what did you do this week not related to technology? What did you enjoy doing this week not related to technology? I do a lot of things that,
I
think this is your section.
I really would like, and I was just saying to Karl earlier, I think it was you, unless I'm just spacing out, I would love to be able to roll my car window down without having to start the ignition. And, I just want to do some simple things like that.
Remember the cranks.
I don't want to be dependent on electricity to roll down a window, or battery powered to roll down a window. So and to keep my old brain going, I try to keep away from the calculator. Do your own math, please.
Yeah, there's rarely anything so complicated as that you need a calculator for.
Yeah, and I don't have a printer at home. I write everything down in good old-fashioned handwriting, and hope to do scripts and handwriting. And if I need to type something, I will go to the library and do it. And my daughter's the same way. We don't, I homeschool her, and I've taught her cursive. Why do I need this? It's like, I don't know. You will need it. I promise you.
Right.
You will need this someday. But I still don't know why I would need algebra to get my RN. But that's the unanswered question there, because the things I've done, I've not yet needed it, and I do pretty much almost everything.
How do you think? Well, as a homeschooler, I think that's tremendously courageous of you, and I think it's tremendously intelligent in today's world. What should we be preparing our kids for?
Oh. It's frightening, you know what I mean? It's self-preservation is so important, because with the dependency on technology, one time I was in Walmart, of course, it was a little while ago, and one of their computers went down, and the store was disabled.
Yeah.
They couldn't sell.
Yeah.
And that's pathetic to me.
Yeah.
I think absolutely, if you can learn to garden, learn to get your water, learn to know where to take cover. I should buy some land in Montana. I don't know. But it's the very basic things that we're losing. I'd love to take up some canning. We used to can and garden when I was a kid, and those are things I think teach that in school.
Yeah.
Teach really important things in school, like CPR and how to change a tire, and how to manage your money, and how to do customer service and make eye contact. Manners 101. I'd love to see that come in, because that's kind of gone.
Do you think that manners is disappearing because we have such a digital world where people are, buried in, their version of social contact is Facebook and Twitter and Instagram.
I think part of it is, I was thinking about this the other day when it comes to, like, shame is a good motivator. And this will probably sound a little controversial, but shame is a good motivator to enforce societal norms. So, like, in our society, in our environment in Western Maryland, it's not socially unacceptable to wear your pajamas to the market. You can go to the market in full pajamas, and nobody will look at you and say,
not now.
I will.
Well, but again,
I do look, because a lot of times the pajamas are soiled.
Yeah. And so, you know, like, and I've lived places where if you were to walk into a store in your pajamas, somebody would pull you aside and say, you need to go get your life together before you come back. So I think there was a time where those societal norms, they can be restrictive. Yes, they can, and they can constrict people who do not fit easily inside them. But there is it's part of what we've talked about, that the connective tissue of your society that helps hold it together. The idea that there is a certain way to present yourself when you go out in public. There is a certain way to speak to people. There are customs and opening doors for people. Like, that is something that you have to teach. And I think what has happened is that shame has now become this thing that is not used as... that shame is now used to destroy people. Not to, like, if somebody says something...
Not to teach a lesson.
If somebody says something, they make a really bad joke on Twitter, and it's something that offends someone, then Twitter can descend on those people and tear those people apart. Well, and they'll call your boss, and they'll make sure you get fired, and they'll...
There's a British author that was on Marin a while ago, wrote a book about this.
I saw it. He did a TED Talk.
Really, really interesting. But the whole idea, the basic premise of the book was there was a woman on Twitter. She was a business executive.
Yeah.
Flying to Africa for some function, some business function or whatever.
I can't remember what it was.
And she was treating, at the time being, and I remember when I started Facebook, there are things I said on Facebook, because I didn't get that thousands of people would always have access to this.
Somebody's going to be offended.
Millions of people would always be access. So she's tweeting, not understanding the nature of tweets, that tweets are publicly seen and can be shared. She tweeted, "I'm flying into Africa, hope I don't get AIDS." And then it was like thinking that, like, I'm not saying that's funny, but I'm saying Karl and I might have an agreement where we could make a joke like that between Karl and I. And Karl would understand why I was making a joke like this. It was a private comment that got tweeted out publicly. Right.
Well, and she said, like, hope I don't get AIDS, ha ha ha, just kidding, I'm white.
I didn't know there was an I'm white.
I'm white, and so what she was saying was she had this joke amongst her friends that for white people in South Africa, they are completely ignorant of, like, this AIDS epidemic that's happening in the black population. So she was sort of like, in a sarcastic, like, oh, look at, people with white privilege who, whatever.
But you can take that comment completely out of context.
Yeah.
By the time she landed there, she had already lost her job.
People were threatening
her. Threats all over the world. Publicly shamed because the tweet had gotten shared and reshared. Millions of people had seen this by the time she landed on the ground. And, she is... she does social work or something now where I think it's related to it, but the whole story was just so that's what public shaming is now.
Yes, and it's gone. Shame has gone from this thing that is effective in shame, loss prevention. They're really effective motivating tools.
Yeah.
If, like, to get you to fulfill a goal, like you set a goal and you go, look, if I don't lose 20 pounds by this date, you have my permission to post that embarrassing picture of me that I don't want to get out in public.
Well, now,
right? And that motivates you to you don't want to be publicly embarrassed.
Well, and I would do that, like, embarking on a new diet. I'm like, well, I'm going to post the before picture.
Right.
So that I'll have to post the after picture to match that.
And I think it's happened as people have also gotten more and more shameless in the sense that unable to be shamed. Like when Paris Hilton's sex tape came out, and everyone was like, "Oh my god!" and she was just like, "What do you,
but she was speaking of racial epithets.
Yeah, and that was it. She was just like, "Oh, what?" and so like when you don't hang your head and whatever, it lowers the conversation, because then people go like, "Well, why should I be ashamed of myself?" And it's like, you're doing terrible things. You should be ashamed of yourself.
But the broader point is, it's one of Jerry Seinfeld's points too, is that we're losing civility.
Yeah.
We're losing civility. Basic rules of human civility with one another.
Well, I mean, concepts like grace. Just when you reserve giving someone the punishment that they deserve, right? Somebody has wronged you, and rather than lashing out at them, you forgive them, and that is an application of grace. Mm-hmm. It's why Fred Rogers is a personal hero of mine, because he said his show, the Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, was about broadcasting grace into people's living room, and trying to teach kids this concept of accepting people for who they are and forgiving people, these really important concepts.
Yeah, and it was very effective.
Yeah.
So what did you do this week? We talked a bit about all that kind of stuff. Well, we're not quite to who gets the kindness award this week, but let's talk a little bit about that, since we're kind of on kindness. Do you have a kindness award? Every week we give someone the kindness award, or we just say, who gets your kindness award this week?
I don't know. I always struggle with this.
I constantly struggle with this.
I don't see people.
You should spend more time on Pinterest.
The cure-all.
You need to be kinder, Karl.
Right. Yes, I learned flower arranging this week, and so I give my kindness award to Pinterest. No, I don't know. That's you have to come back to me. Pass.
I'm giving mine to Adam Robinson. I'm telling you,
it really did something.
Love this guy. It really did something for me. It wasn't quite as. It didn't land as much with you.
I don't know. I didn't hear the whole. Does it pick up at the end?
Yeah. I felt like it started out a little slow because they were on chess a lot.
Yeah, talking about Bobby Fischer and stuff, which was interesting.
It was interesting. Yeah, the first 40 minutes or so, was it kind of really wound into something for me.
Yeah, I'll have to listen to the end of it, but
I like his approach to life. I'm going to send him a note. He's invited people to. I think I am Adam Robinson.
Nice, very good.
And so I'm going to send him a note about that. I found it really profound and affecting.
Yeah. So I don't. Again, I've just not seen. I don't see people on a regular enough basis. I would just have to give it to like the same people that I always, give the kindness award to.
I think the theme of this podcast is really becoming that you people only get out to my improv class on Tuesday nights.
That's it.
That is so true.
It's that's our peak.
It really is.
We are at our best on Tuesday nights. The rest of the week
truer
sucks.
than you think.
Yeah, I mean, I had to. Change things to go out in public so I could participate in improv,
Yeah.
Do you find
find laundry?
Do you feel like I don't know, I mean, it always feels good to me. I've been doing this for a while. This is the first time I've really done it locally with adults.
Right.
With kids, I've taught a few classes around here at MCCA. Where I always integrate a little bit of improv in, and I find people respond pretty universally to improv. I guess what I'm asking is, do you feel like, getting that weekly workout of improv, of social contact, of funniness, whatever you get out of that, do you feel that pervades other areas of your life? Does it make you a better person, a worse person? Does it extend beyond Tuesday night?
Sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think when there's something about, I think improv especially when you're working with people who really, when you're working with people who get it and they all understand and want to work as a team, and there's give and take, and there's that sense of, don't worry if you can't think of something funny. I will bail you out, or I will throw you a line. I will, you know. And when you're working in an environment that's that giving and that positive, yeah, it's a very.
Can you think of something specifically that it does, or an incident that specifically? Because I feel, for me personally, since working with the adults, you know, a couple things began to manifest in my life. First, the film that I didn't want to do,
right,
made me go, well, why am I even thinking about doing this film I don't want to do for not enough money to live my life? Why don't I get some, we got to get a film going around here. But so I find that creativity begets creativity.
Yes.
Right.
Certainly in my life.
Yeah.
It has got me very, like, I am shooting a film this year. I might shoot 3 films this year. I might shoot 4 films this year.
Yeah.
I just really want to just keep creating all the time. But I find that improv really is the thing that has always fueled that for me. It's always fueled the creative ideas.
I will say,
intend to do more creativity.
I think last night, I could really see the possibility of, and it was a really exciting idea. Like, there's the seed of what could be going out in public and doing it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, there were stuff fun like this. What we did last night, and really the week before too. I'm like, you could play this to a crowd somewhere.
Yeah.
This is good. This has gone beyond
and
a good class.
They would love it because there's nothing like that around here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, go do like live rock and roll improv somewhere and just and throw it out in front of people. They would go crazy.
But this would be funny in Los Angeles.
This
would be funny in
was
Chicago.
Yeah,
like,
and some of that stuff.
This isn't just, well, it's pretty good for around here.
For Cumberland,
this is good.
Yeah.
I've seen it on all levels.
Yeah,
this
I think
is good
it would
improv.
just be so absorbed here because it's so needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing I'd really like to launch, is a little bit of a plan to play publicly, to demonstrate this, to flex this muscle and demonstrate locally, because I'd just like to share it with more people. And I'm glad. I mean, the class has been constantly growing. But my God, to get out and do this in front of a real audience who doesn't, it's one thing when you're playing for the other half of the class that, like I said, in essence knows the magic trick.
Right.
But when you're playing for people that can't necessarily see behind the curtain.
Right.
I mean, I think it would. I think the area needs it.
I do too.
I think so too.
Absolutely.
And I think I'm probably. I always look at it selfishly as like I would have a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, that's
but I think that's
the
the thing. Like if you're engaging in something that will make you will make you laugh, and that you can make other people laugh doing this other thing,
Well, it is, and again back to what these weird themes that seem to be emerging here, but it is a socially engaging activity,
right.
Whether you're participating in it or watching it or witnessing it. It's a socially engaging activity. Laughter itself is a socially engaging activity. But improv, when you see something being created on the spot, spontaneously, that's a socially engaging activity, which is, as we move away from the toxicity of Facebook, which has become our socially engaging activity over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I'm speaking for me. For me, a lot of my creativity was going into this vacuum called Facebook.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've talked about it. You and I've talked about it before, that it's so easy now to take an idea for a joke, and rather than developing it into a joke, you can just put it on Facebook and get 10 likes, or you put it on Twitter and it gets 10 retweets or whatever. And, and you
didn't make any money doing that. And
you didn't make any money doing it. And
maybe you made somebody laugh a little bit.
And, and like for a comedian,
I guess there's value in that.
Yeah. I mean, for a comedian though, if it's, especially for people who really take that stuff seriously, you can throw away some really good stuff. Yeah. Yep, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a really tremendous thing. and I think people would really, really go for it. And again, and if that means that it's 10 people who love it, and improvisers are having fun,
especially if there's a bar.
Yeah.
And they have a liquor license.
We always said,
absolutely.
Yeah.
You tell. I mean, it is. It's you're selling drinks, and people are having a good time. They're laughing.
And when I worked,
all their suggestions will be dirty.
That's right.
That is.
No doubt.
Give me an object, dildo.
Right. Yeah.
That's an object right here.
I knew it was going to be a dildo.
Right. I just knew.
I had a feeling.
It's on my keychain. What am I going to do?
Yeah. Give me a first line.
Right, yeah, exactly. But I mean, like when I worked in radio, we always talked about like the last station I worked at. I worked with Neil Steele, who was an old school teeny bop and rock and roll DJ, since reformed, recovering teeny bop and rock and roll DJ. And we did the show for each other. We did the show for ourselves. And if it made us laugh, we didn't really care if anybody else was listening to it.
Well, you have to be selfish in that sense.
You have to because you can't guarantee.
You have to include them,
and you don't know what other people are going to find funny. You don't know what other people are going to enjoy.
The things you think are going to work are going to fall flat,
and the
things that you just as an afterthought, people will think is the funniest thing they've ever heard. That's what's so great about comedy. What lands is what lands.
And the more you try and go, okay, how am I going to make this person laugh? How do I find something? I think they're going to think that this is really funny. Mm-hmm. You can't, you start watering it down to the point that, you just have to go, this is funny. And if you don't think this is funny, then you need to go find another show. And the people who think it's funny, will gravitate towards it.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited the direction that it's all going. Well, I really enjoyed having Vicki on the show with us.
Absolutely, yeah, it was great. I think she went off to check on Emma real quick here. Yeah. And we're kind of at wrap-up point on the show. Yeah.
But I think we will definitely invite Vic back another time.
Yeah.
And I think it was successful having a sidekick here with us.
And I think we had some, there were some other folks who were like, oh, yeah, I'll come.
Yeah, I think BJ wanted to come by.
So,
I know Matt wants to come by and do one. So
that'd be cool.
Yeah, that's fun.
Good deal.
All right, well, let's wrap it up because my lawyer texted me, and she's like at the restaurant now.
Oh, man, you and your Hollywood. Got to go meet my lawyer.
Well, that's what I said last week. That's right. I'm once again, we're moving forward with these film ideas and these studio ideas in the area here. So I'm lunching with my lawyer.
Going to Spago? Did you get a table?
Yes, got a table at the Spago. The Spago of Frostburg. We're going to Wasabi this time. We went to the Mexican restaurant.
Yeah, very good.
Last time. Today we're doing Wasabi for lunch.
Excellent.
So, all that said, let's wrap this up.
Yes.
And once again, I am JW.
I'm Karl.
And this has been the Movie Brewdio podcast with JW and Karl. Episode number 8.
Yeah.
This was episode number 8. And as we've become so fond of saying, in tribute to a reference that we don't even completely understand.
Correct.
That's it. Fort Pitt. See you next week, people.